Segment 2 of the Flashback. I'm Radio Hondo. Thanks for joining me in Segment 2. We're going to talk about the Hall of Fame inductees as well as that NFC matchups, those games between Dallas and Green Bay. A lot of interesting things that we saw in that game. Two very similar style teams coming together. You knew it was going to be a close one. It ended up being a close one. There ended up being some controversy because it's Dallas, and that's the way they run things down there. Yeah, always a storyline. Dallas and New York, you know. The Cowboys are the Yankees of football. That's just the way it is. When it comes to the news, that's the way it goes. All right, we're also going to talk about, like I said, the Hall of Fame inductees, not only for baseball, but for college football, and that other NFC matchup that was Seattle and the, what do you call that team? Oh, Carolina. Yeah, Carolina Panthers. They were in there with their almost 500 record. They were creeping. They were getting close to 500. Could have been. Anyhow, they did not win that game, of course. We'll talk about it on the backside of this segment. But for right now, I want to get into that discussion about the Hall of Fame inductees for baseball. Just recently announced John Smoltz, Pedro Martinez, Randy Johnson, some heavy arms in this one. And then there was the outlier, Craig Biggio. Yeah. Craig gets in there, and, you know, I always enjoyed watching Craig Biggio play. He's one of those guys who is all about the team all the time. Where you want me to play, I don't care. I'll play catcher. I'll play shortstop. I'll play third base. I'll play first base. I'll play second base. I'll play the outfield. He did it all. He really did. And he also picked up his 3,000 hits. Now, granted, I believe he does have the lowest batting average of any 3,000 hits player. He came in somewhere right around 270, 283, somewhere in that range. But there's another name there, too, with the same type of stat line, an infielder, Cal Ripken. He was like a 278 lifetime hitter. Got his 3,000 hits. I mean, I probably could have gotten 3,000 hits if I played that many games. I'm just saying. But, you know, hey, Craig's a great guy. I'm glad to see him in there. Houston Astro into the Hall of Fame. Teammate there, Bags, he's probably not going to make it in. The post-Glenn Davis, Jeff Bagwell, came in, reasserted power in the lineup. Those Killer Bees, they had some runs. Craig Biggio, huge part of that. Congratulations to him. Pedro Martinez and Randy Johnson, John Smoltz, we all know their history. John Smoltz especially, being able to convert from a starter, going to the bullpen. And when you're a closer with a slider like that at his age, oh, man, a lot of success there. So, congrats to John Smoltz as well. Great player. Good play-by-play guy, or not play-by-play, but color commentator there for ESPN as well. Just amazing. Pedro Martinez probably doesn't have much of a future in the sports commentating, but like John Smoltz, but I don't know, maybe for another, maybe for the Spanish language channel. I still do not ever understand whatever Pedro Martinez says. I have to listen to it 3 or 4 times, as well as, put on the closed captioning on my television. And then Randy Johnson, tremendous career to start things off. Well, it was a tremendous career to start things off once he got out of Montreal. Once he officially was out of the minor leagues from Montreal and then into what I like to call AAA, which is Seattle. So he went from single-A ball Montreal to AAA ball Seattle. Made a name for himself, of course. The huge run in 95. Coming out of the bullpen to solidify the Mariners into the postseason and shut down and close down that chase on the California Angels. Yeah, back then it was California Angels. How many times are you going to change your name? Where do you want to be? California Angels and the Arizona Cardinals. Man, what is going on there? Anyhow, so a great time there. Then obviously gets traded to Houston. Made a great run for Houston. The players that Seattle got in that trade helped continue some of the growth that they were going through. I think Halama was in that trade. I think Garcia was a part of that trade, I want to say. and some others, but helped out Houston. They carried things on through the playoffs. Fell short, of course. I don't think that was not the year they made the World Series. I do not believe that was the year they made the World Series. And then, of course, continued with the Diamondbacks. Won a World Series with the Diamondbacks. And then finally made a stop in New York. And it wasn't the best of times. It wasn't the best of times. But Randy, always a huge competitor. Who could forget him and John Kruk in the All-Star game? John Kruk laughs about it now, and he was laughing about it then, but wow. 90-plus mile-an-hour fastball coming out of lefty's hand, headed straight for your head. That's kind of scary. Anyhow, so congrats to John Smoltz, Pedro, and, of course, Craig Biggio. There was an article, always going to be some players that we thought, they really kind of deserve to be in there. But I thought there was an interesting article on ESPN, actually. It was the all-time, all-underrated team. They had listed a few players here and there, some of those guys that just kind of get overlooked. Many of them from our childhoods, growing up, where we kind of just feel an attachment to the way one player may play for a particular team, or the contributions they make to baseball as a whole, or the fundamentals that they hold inside, the fundamentals that they have and they carry out and they show on the field every day. I'm talking about the guys like John Olerud, who's listed in this article for the all-star or all-time underrated team. I'm talking about like Lou Whitaker and Alan Trammell. Those were some of my first experiences with baseball growing up. I was watching Lou Whitaker and Alan Trammell. Those guys are great, and it's a shame not to see them where they should be. John Olerud, fellow Washington State grad, played some time in Japan, had a tremendous season in Toronto. I thought Johnny O, unfortunately he's probably never going to make it into the Hall of Fame, but wow. And his senior year at Washington State, I think he hit something like he hit over 400, had like 24 home runs. Plus the guy had set 16, I believe it was 16 pitching records. Yeah, he did it all. College player of the year his senior year at Washington State. But yeah, he's one of those guys probably just never going to get in, unfortunately. He just didn't have the huge power numbers. Always get kind of swayed, I think, when we look at some of the numbers, and especially now, when you're playing in different eras, there's different rules for different eras, however slight and small they are. But when the pitching mound gets moved up 2 inches or down 2 inches, that has a huge impact on the players and the players of that era. Not only from the pitching standpoint, but from the hitting standpoint as well. How big the ballparks are when they're playing. Another one I think you can throw in there is Fred McGriff too. They did that in this article. Let's see, for first base. I think Freddie the Crime Dog. Thought he was a good player. I think he was right up there record wise as far as 30 home run, 100 RBI seasons consecutive. He just had a great run. Gave Atlanta a couple pushes there after he was traded from Toronto to Atlanta. Third base, Greg Nettles they had listed. Shortstop, they had Trammell. So there you go, Trammell and Whitaker. And Trammell, 285 lifetime hitter for dead ball era, essentially in the 80s. We weren't seeing a whole bunch of power numbers in the 80s. Let's be honest. So Alan Trammell on there. 285 hitter, like I said. Jose Cruz Sr., they put in left field. Kenny Lofton, they put in center field. That's an interesting one. Kenny Lofton, a lot of great seasons as well. A lot of speed early in his career. Dwight Evans, there's one for right field. Dwight Evans, man. Wow. And for a pitcher, I don't agree with this one at all. Kevin Brown they have there. Kevin Brown had some great seasons. He's a borderline, though, for me. For me, he's a real borderline. He had some good years, but once he was out of that problem, and granted, for pitchers and even hitters sometimes, you have essentially, when you hit your prime, that about 5-year window or so. Yeah, and he had some good seasons. He had some good seasons with the Marlins, won a World Series there. Had some good seasons with Texas. And I think he had, 2 I want to say 2 no-hitters. Maybe he just had 1 and almost had 2 or 3. I know he was in a couple issues where he almost had that no-hitter, but did not. Mike Mussina was another guy who was on the list this year that came kind of close, pulled some votes. People were talking about a bit. But I don't think that Mike Mussina, unfortunately, will ever get there. The Moose was great. A lot of tremendous years with a horrible Baltimore Orioles organization when they were really down, when they really weren't getting anything done there in Baltimore. He had some good seasons with them, kept the momentum going, and was the ace and the number 1. But once he came to New York, he was a very effective pitcher, but really kind of goes down historically as just one of those guys who was a great contributor. Good power pitcher, could strike out some guys, usually in the top 10, top 5 in strikeouts per season. And another one that, wow, on at least 2 or 3 occasions, so close to a no-hitter, just couldn't pull it off though. So kind of a rough break there for him. But hey, great job, selection committee. Obviously, a lot of those are going to be kind of controversial all the time when you look at the players over the years that have been snubbed for whatever reason, whether it's Goose Gossage or what was his name that just finally got in there a year or 2 ago, the other pitcher of the 70s and 80s. It's a crapshoot sometimes, and it really is. And sometimes it comes down to personality and just how people perceived you. How people perceived you. If you played on a team that were known as like bad boys or something, somebody might hold that against you later on. All right, College Football Hall of Fame. That class was announced as well. There were 75 players on the list to pick from, along with 6 on the coaching ballot. 2 of those coaches got in. That was Jim Tressel, of course, and Bill Snyder. Jim Tressel, huge controversy on this one. And he's getting elected in for his time at Youngstown State. But for me, if you did some great things at Youngstown State, and that's fine. 4 or 5 consecutive titles that they won, something like that. I mean, just had an exceptional success rate. And in the backyard there, an Ohio guy, his whole life, was hired on with Ohio State, led them to some prominent games in his time, but also had some real issues, and then had the cover-up issues. And character is a part of this. Character is a part of it. Whether you like it or not, character is a part of this. And I'm sorry, but I don't agree. Getting a guy in there as a coach who's supposed to know better. He's not some 20-year-old kid running around making mistakes. He's a grown man covering up the mistakes of 22-year-olds and 18-year-olds. And I don't care how much success he had at Youngstown State, and I guarantee there was probably some cover-ups over there. They're Division II, so they don't get looked at. That's a rough neighborhood. Youngstown in general is a rough neighborhood. You're going to tell me that there wasn't some things going on at Youngstown State? Get out of town. Get out of town. But here's the thing. Doesn't matter how much success you have. If you end it badly, if you do something that gets you banned from college football, like he is right now, you don't deserve it. You just don't. So I don't agree with Jim Tressel getting in there. Brian Bosworth, I'm a little bit closer yeah. You can't deny how good he was. And whether it's opinion or not, I really don't. He had the painkiller issue, the steroids, recovering. He put so much in everything. He was shot. He was shot by the time he got to the NFL. He was shot just about senior year almost. I mean, how many stingers do you think he had over the years, taking and giving big hits like that? So, Brian Bosworth, a little bit more open, and he's kind of opened up. He's really opened up in terms of who the real Brian Bosworth is. But he's also a trendsetter too. Because as much as you don't like to admit it. If we didn't have the boss, we wouldn't have a lot of other personalities that have come on through the years. So we opened up another door right there. He was fascinating to watch, especially everybody wanted to watch him, but especially in college. And I think he has the numbers to prove it. And I really don't think those steroids were anything outside of, when he had a shoulder injury and was starting to recover from that. Now, if some people are against Brian Bosworth being on there, I'm okay with that too. But Jim Tressel doesn't deserve to be there. Not right now. Certainly not right now. And then Ricky Williams, he gets in there. Hey, great career. I didn't think he was going to make it too well in the NFL. Probably could have been better. Probably could have been better in the NFL. But he just kept getting hassled by the man. Kept getting hassled by the man. And then Bill Snyder, if you're still coaching, no, you don't get in if you're still coaching. Finally retire for real, Bill Snyder. Finally retire for real. All right. So that's some of the names there. And, of course, again, with these character issues, some people just get snubbed because of character and opinion. Character and opinion all the time. Tim Couch, he probably should be in there. Eric Crouch, he should be in there. They have a list here that I found of players that you'd be surprised at some of the players who are not in. Keyshawn Johnson, a wide receiver at USC, his days there. Although they didn't have as great of a bowl success time with Keyshawn there. Eric Dickerson, he gets snubbed for obvious reasons. Ray Lewis. I don't know why Ray Lewis is on that list, to be honest with you. He left early, so he probably shouldn't be on there. But Simeon Rice, another one. And there are a lot of players over the years. So people are going to get snubbed. But when you put in a guy with questionable character over somebody who just played their heart out and had a nice college career, that's what kind of bugs me. That's the only thing that bugs me about it, really. It's college, man. People make mistakes as kids, but administrators making mistakes, coaches making mistakes, I have a little bit harder time with that. Another interesting note, too, twice as many members of the Hall of Fame were elected in the previous, 33 years or so? From 1946 to 1979. There are like 500-plus players that got in. Since 1980 to 2014, there's only been about 255 players that have gotten elected in. So what's going on there? Oh, I'm sorry. We're running out of oldies to add in. We're running out of guys to find way back in history when Stanford was still playing as the Indians. We're running out of time there. Running out of guys that we want to get in. Yeah, it's a bunch of malarkey. All right. Email me your thoughts on the College Football Hall of Fame, on the selection committee, or whatever topic in regards to the Baseball Hall of Fame. And let me tell you, if you ever get a chance to get to Cooperstown and the Baseball Hall of Fame, always worth the go. Of course, you do have to drive out there. I don't recommend staying in Cooperstown, personally. Not really much of a nightlife or anything like that. Nice little quiet town, though, out in western New York. You fly into Albany or something, and then you take some country roads to get to this place. But when you do, I mean, it's just full-on excitement. I mean, every name and just walking through the halls and seeing the people here and there throughout history, the players that you grew up with, the players that your parents grew up with, the players that your children are watching today, and seeing them in the Hall of Fame, whether they're elected in or if they're just kind of just showing the life of baseball. It's an experience that everybody should have. So get to Cooperstown if you can. Get to Canton, Ohio if you can. I don't know if I would ever go to the College Football Hall of Fame, but anyhow, got to get to the NBA, the football, and as well as the Baseball Hall of Fame. All right. You can email me, of course, again, your thoughts, takes, whatever you want. Comment below. I'll get back to you. I'll bring it in on the next show. We'll talk about it, whatever you want to hit on. RadioHondo@gmail.com. You can just send me your takes if you want as well. I'll again, review them and look on them on the next show. So radiohondo@gmail.com, and always remember to subscribe to our station here on Radio Flashback. I'm Radio Hondo. NFC football recaps. Want to get to that. Green Bay and Dallas. I'm just going to jump right into it because we kind of ate up a lot of time there. Went super long on segment one. Sorry. When I start talking about NBA players fighting, I tend to carry on a little bit. And then when I talk about big upset games like that Indianapolis-Denver, yeah, I'm going to go a little long. Sometime. Anyhow, let's get right into it. Green Bay 26, Dallas 21. This was a game. It was back and forth. We spoke about it before last week. Taking a look at the matchup, I said these two teams are very close in style. No matter which team you think is the better team, the bottom line is they both have effective running games. Yes, Dallas has a slight edge on that. They both have extremely good passing games, and I think Green Bay has the edge on that. Although Dallas has Dez Bryant, who's a tremendous receiver. They probably have the better overall receiving corps in terms of talent just because it's top-heavy there. But when you look at the things that Aaron Rodgers can do, the way he studies the game and plays, he's another one. Just along with Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck comes in and just kind of takes things over. Rodgers comes up, had a lot of talent in Cal. I think he did. He did. I'm pretty sure he was the one who upset USC back in the day when he was at Cal. Upset USC, and I don't know if that game went into overtime or not. But anyway, he came in the league, has been throwing dimes all over the place. Took I don't know how much tutelage he really got from Brett Favre, but the important thing is he developed as a player, didn't let him get him down, didn't go to another town. He waited his 2 years, then he stepped up, has a Super Bowl ring already, has gotten to the Super Bowl. Just in itself is great, and he's continuing. He's a fighter, and he's a funny guy. He's a funny guy who's going to pump you up, all right? He's a funny guy. So what did Dallas do? Well, they had the effective running game throughout. DeMarco Murray was doing well, especially in the first half. Doing well, carrying the ball. Romo was very efficient. I think he was 15-19 on the day. Had the touchdowns. I don't believe he threw an interception. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then, of course, on the side for Green Bay, third down conversions. Lacey ran well. First half, was running very well. He had like 60-some-odd yards in the first half. Second half, he ends up finishing up 19 carries, 101 yards. So good ground game for Green Bay. Kept things going there. And then Rodgers, also 24-35, 3 touchdowns, a 125 QBR. So his quarterback rating was through the roof for the day. Yeah, with a bad calf and all. With a tear in his calf, he was able to throw the ball. Granted, it wasn't a tear in his quad, but it was a tear in his calf. He was having trouble running around. You could see him wincing. Yeah, obviously he's probably got some cortisone in there. Same thing with Romo in his back. And every other part of his body right now. He's been getting beat up. He got beat up against Detroit. He got beat up against Green Bay. I think he was sacked 4 times. Got sacked 6 times against Detroit. But, of course, everybody wants to turn to the play. The play! The catch! The non-catch. And I'm sorry to disappoint you. You probably heard it already. But the fact of the matter is, it wasn't a catch. It was not a catch. That's still one motion. You haven't stopped. There was no distinct start and stop to the football move. That's what a football move is. It has to have a beginning and an end. And Dez Bryant didn't have an end. It was a continuation, falling out of the air. A stumble is not a step, necessarily. And you can't tell if he has full reception. Now, granted, I'll give you this. Whether to overturn it was kind of a question. Just because you can't distinctly see that the ball is still moving around. But you also can't be upset at that either. I just don't think you can be upset at that. I don't think you can be upset at that when you're running the ball so well. and you fail to do so. I don't think you can be upset when, Bryant was targeted 5 times on the game and had 3 receptions. Don't think you can be upset there. And that's basically what did it. And then on the defensive side, Dallas played well for the most part defensively, but it is very difficult to continue to stop such a balanced attack. Like we said, over 100 yards for Lacey. 3 touchdowns for Rodgers. 24-35. And Romo had an efficient day too, but he only threw 15 passes. Murray had like 16 carries in the first half. They were really getting that running game going. And they should have kept it going in the second half. Then you look at the missed field goal. They miss a field goal at the half. Green Bay comes back and hits their field goal. Same thing happened in the Indianapolis game, too. Coincidentally enough, on Sunday, it happens twice. 14-10 leads going into the half, missed field goal, followed by made field goal. Very interesting. It's kind of a funny coincidence. So talk about that 6-point swing right there. And even if Bryant gets that catch, they don't overturn it, which I think it would have been okay to say, hey, we can't confirm that it didn't. We called it a catch on the field, so we're going to stick with the catch. Would have been okay with that too. But I just don't want to hear the argument that it was a catch. If you want to make the argument of it being overturned and conclusive evidence, okay. But whether it was a catch or not, it wasn't a catch. And they should have stopped him. They should have been able to stop him. But here's the big question now. Dallas, they have to move on. They got to move on. And I was giving Dallas some credit this year. I really thought Tony Romo was in a better place. I think he showed that in this game. I think he showed that during the regular season. I think he showed that during the playoffs. He was in a better place. The team overall was in a better place. They have a great lawyer on the sideline in Des Bryant, who was actually quite calm after the game. I was surprised at how calm he was. Very shocking. I've never heard him in that. He was like giving a victim voice. He was in a victim voice. I took away my catch. Reminded me of Terrell Owens. But what does Dallas do now? That's the more important thing. They're close to signing Garrett. That's good. But they also have Murray. And they also have Bryant. And those are 2 of the 3 big things that they have to get done. And the other question is Romo. He's 35 years old. No quarterback over 35 has won a Super Bowl since John Elway. And there haven't been many quarterbacks in general over 35 who have won a Super Bowl. We're talking about like Jim Plunkett's, man. Yeah. There you go. 2 Stanfords in a row. John Elway and Plunkett. So they've got to sign Murray. We've got to figure out what's going on with Bryant because they've been in contract negotiations and talks. I don't know if those have paused for a while or what the deal was, but I know that there's been threats, hey, we're going to franchise you, we're going to get you, whatever. And he wants to stay there, but he wants to be respected too as far as payday. And he deserves it. He's one of the top receivers. But Dallas is going to have to figure that out now moving forward, or else they're stuck. Meanwhile, Green Bay, they're looking pretty good. Have a youth movement there on the defense. Spoke about it before with, what's his name? They have Clinton Dix. Great player in the secondary for them. A nice mix and match of youth as well as experience on that defensive front. Dix as well as Peppers. Peppers, one of the older guys coming in there, giving some influence and some medium range too with Matthews and etc. So they're looking pretty solid offensively as well. And next week, They're gonna be in the fight of their life as they take to Seattle. This is always a good game. I am really looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to the breakdown of this game, which we're gonna have Thursday, of course. Thursday I'll break down the AFC as well as the NFC. Both games taking place on Sunday. Seahawks versus Green Bay at home in Seattle, and then you have New England at home versus Indianapolis. So 2 good games. I think we're seeing a lot of great youth movements here. The quarterbacks, of course, are all solid. One up-and-comer, and then you have 3 guys who have won Super Bowls already. Doesn't get much better than that. Doesn't get much better than that at all. Seahawks and Panthers. This game, I'm going to keep it short on this one because I want to get to an interview that I did. I called up a friend right after the game, spoke with him about what was taking place. Actually, I called him the next day right after the Dallas-Green Bay game. So I'm going to have that interview here in just a few, but just briefly about this Seahawks-Panthers game. Complete dominance, no surprises, but that secondary solid. We said they were going to get some turnovers. They averaged 1.5 per game at home. They ended up picking off 3, and I think they got 4 turnovers overall. So excellent job. Wilson did his thing. He runs around and scrambles, and they run heavy run when they're at home. That's what the Hawks do when they're at home. Everybody after the game talking about, hey, they won 31-17. Well, what was the big question mark? Big question mark was, I don't know, man, our offense, man. Your offense is opportunistic. That's what they do. They wait, they sit, and they wait, especially at home. They sit and they wait. Get used to it, Seattle. Just accept it, man. You didn't even have a Super Bowl a couple years ago. Be happy with what you have. Wilson is a great quarterback. He's doing a great job. Keeps the turnovers down. He's winning games, and he has you a ring already. What's the problem? Honestly, what's the problem? He's a think pass first runner and scrambler. He knows when he needs to run. He's smart enough to slide. He knows when he needs to take hits. He finds open receivers. And he doesn't have the greatest receiving corps in the world, let me tell you that much. Didn't have the greatest receiving corps when he was at Wisconsin either. I think he had Al Toon's son at the time. It might have been the only good receiver he had there. But Wisconsin doesn't exactly bust out the best receivers every year. You don't have the best receivers in Seattle. Then you got rid of one. Talent-wise, great. Locker room, wouldn't really want him on the team. Good move there, locker room-wise. So what are you complaining about, Seattle? Anyway, they dominate the Panthers. We all saw it. Not much of a game. Thought it was going to be a little bit closer. Ended up pulling off some more points than I thought they were going to, but they passed the over-under, which, again, I had that game scoring a little bit higher than those real tight ball games that they've had in the past. So Seahawks win. Seattle moves on. They're going to be actually staying at home despite moving on, and they're going to bring in Green Bay next week. And I'm going to be bringing in a friend of mine right now after the game on Sunday. I actually spoke with a good friend of mine, Greg Ferguson, former defensive lineman at Western Washington University. Good guy, football coach now with the young kids. Well, a big win for Seattle yesterday in the divisional round of the playoffs. They were at home. They defeat Carolina 31-17. Seemed like a pretty dominant performance, but a slow start at the beginning. Joined now with Greg Ferguson, longtime Seattle Seahawks fan. Watching this game yesterday, Greg, what were your initial thoughts on it?
Kind of just a normal Seahawks win for the last 7-8 weeks. Kind of keep them close in the first half there. Kind of create some distance, run away in the second. Defense is controlling it, and we're letting Wilson kind of do his thing. And the big surprise was kind of how Lynch didn't do his normal 100, 120 yards type of a deal. And they seem to bottle him up pretty well.
Yeah, Lynch was struggling for Seattle on the other side in the first half. We saw some success by Jonathan Stewart. In their game earlier in the season, he had over 5 yards per carry. This game, he averaged over 5 yards per carry. Were you surprised by that?
I was a little surprised. It seemed like since Wagner's been back, that's kind of gone away from our opponents. But somehow they figured out a way to get up to him and wall him off, and just that interior defense didn't seem to be as stout this week. But I think that's just a Carolina thing. I don't think it's a Seattle problem. I think it's just Carolina's pretty darn good.
Yeah, defensively, it seemed that Seattle was focusing a little bit more on the pass game rather than the run. Do you think that was part of the game plan, or?
Yeah, I don't know. I think they maybe just didn't worry too much about that running game because Cam Newton's not the Cam Newton of old where he's going to get out and just torch you on the outside, and so maybe they just kind of felt that they were going to try and attack him that way. And all I know is that the pass defense was there, and that's what mattered. And Cam Chancellor came up and made some pretty punishing hits, as well as the little guy there, Earl. So that was kind of nice.
Yeah, you mentioned Cam Newton not being the Cam of old. It's kind of hard saying that, being that he's only been in the league for a few years, but all those ticky-tack injuries seem to be adding up, and his effectiveness as a runner seems to have gone down. A lot of designed runs still for him in that game.
Yeah, he's still a big dude. I wouldn't mind having him, on our team playing a little bit of fullback or tight end type of position. But pretty happy we got our Russell that likes to run and not get hit.
Yeah. Well, they did have that struggle against the run, in particular against Stewart carrying the ball, and Dallas has just fallen to Green Bay. So you guys were going to be up against another tough running back in Eddie Lacy. What do you think about Seattle and their ability to stop Eddie Lacy?
Well, I think Coach Quinn and Carroll will go back to the drawing board, see a little bit of what the Panthers were able to do against that interior defense, and they'll figure out a way to stop them. I think it's going to be two different teams than you guys saw in Week 1. Seattle is definitely a different team. I mean, no Harvin in there. We're definitely not going to see the jet sweeps and that kind of stuff we did with him Week 1. And for that matter, now with Rodgers hobbled, we'll see how they're going to do. I'm not worried.
It'll be an interesting rematch. Two definitely different teams from the beginning of the season, obviously, with Green Bay not relaxing at that point, and Seattle with weapons in terms of Harvin, but still that defense has really come on strong, so a different defensive look as well. Well, a lot of rough years you've had growing up, obviously being a Seattle fan, but now they have a championship. Looks like they are working on a second. How does that feel as a lifelong fan?
It's exciting. I mean, it's hard to put into words. I mean, it's even if I'm not going to say something bad happens next week, but it's just you look at everybody that we've got locked up for for the future, for the next 5-8 seasons. I mean, we're a playoff team. It's there's no going back to Flores or God forbid Mora, that horrible season. I mean, it's awesome. It's great competition, and hearing about this last week, and ESPN put out their article about after the Kansas City game and the Come to Jesus meeting and all that they had, and all those leaders that were in that are going to be with this team for for the next 3 to 5 years. And I mean, that's just awesome. It's just great to have a team every year that's going to be in the hunt, if not in the big game. So it's exciting.
And you yourself played some defensive line in college, had some big games there with Western Washington, and behind you, I'm sure you always had a good linebacking corps. I heard Brian Bosworth now, he's been selected to the College Football Hall of Fame. Of course, he spent some time in the Emerald City, well documented, of course. Were you happy, upset, confused? What were your thoughts about Brian Bosworth?
It's funny because ESPN, again, came out with that 30 for 30 on the Boss, and up until then, I hated the guy. But watching that and seeing how he came in, and, he was actually a pretty humble guy his first couple of years at Oklahoma, and he kind of changed his persona intentionally so he could get, some publicity and everything like that. But from everybody that talked about him, he was, really a hard worker and didn't, a great teammate, didn't really cause any issues other than with the media and stuff. So if it wasn't for seeing that, I think I'd be pretty upset. But after seeing that and, got to say, keep in mind it's college. It's not about what he did in the NFL.
Exactly.
So no one can deny that he was probably the best or top 5 all-time linebackers in college.
Absolutely. The numbers show it when he was with Oklahoma, of course, and then the title runs that they had with his time at the university. It just seemed that by the time he got to the NFL, he was his shoulders were gone, his body was done.
Yeah, that's what they were saying. That's where the steroid issue came in, was rehab. It wasn't so much as he didn't do it in his first couple of years there, and well, he was just as dominant then as he was at the end. So it was more of the rehab, and it kind of sounds like even if he didn't get caught with that and wasn't a mental midget when he got into the NFL, his career would have ended just as quick because he was just hurt. He was done.
Yeah. Well, Seattle's still a lot of big players, a lot of big playmakers, and a lot of talkers as well, just like the Boz was, of course. So next Sunday, Seattle hosting Green Bay. Predictions for that game?
Well, of course the Hawks are going to take it. Go back and probably play against the Broncos again. But I would say it's probably going to be, I'm going to say in the 10-point range, So.
All right, so keeping it relatively close.
Yeah, they'll keep it close again. It'll be, I think it's going to be a typical Seahawks game where it's, they'll be up 3 to 6 at halftime and then pull away in the early in the fourth quarter and let my stress level go down a little bit. Awesome.
Any prediction on the score besides that 10-point swing?
Well, let's go 27-17.
27-17. All right. Well, Greg, thank you very much for joining us here on the Flashback. Really appreciate your time, and we'll catch up later.
I had one question for you. What did you think about? I can't remember what was that guy's name that had that one-handed catch, and what school did he go to?
Oh, I don't know. Probably UW.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of all right, buddy.
All right. Always quick with the jab there. Thanks again, Greg. Have a great weekend. Man. Enjoy the games. All right, that was my good friend Greg Ferguson. Thank you, as always, for coming out of the show. And, of course, the quick jab there. Yeah, the UW players with Curse. Yeah, he made a play. All right, great. Yeah, that's the one bad thing about Greg. He's a UW guy. I went to WSU. Hey, we're always going to fight about that. But we get along where it matters, and great guy. Good conversation with him. Thanks for sharing your thoughts with us, Greg. We're going to wrap up segment 2 and get into the college football championship game here in segment 3, so stick around. A whole lot more to come. Interesting game, the way it broke down this past weekend. A lot of unexpected things. Remember, you can comment below, give a take. We're going to throw it up there. I'll respond back to you as well. If you want to also try to, get featured on the show here, that'd be great. Send me an email with what you want to talk about. I'll kind of give you a response on the next following segment. So bring those on in to radiohondo@gmail.com. That's radiohondo@gmail.com. I want to thank you for listening to segment 2. We have segment 3 coming up, college basketball and more. You're listening to The Flashback, Radio Hondo.